The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Just the, I call the propeller head.
I'm not hearing. I'm not hearing anything.
Okay, so we seem to have a challenge. Oh, I'm getting the okay that we're fine. So what we want to do kind of going forward here is to talk to you about the cloud, take a look at it, let you know kind of how it fits into a business perspective, and ultimately to take you through some examples, both outside this industry as well as in other industries, how people are going to the cloud in terms of finding solutions. Now, so the cloud, menacing storm or silver lining. This was the presentation we originally created for the CITT and their membership, and we're very happy to be able to continue to share that with you through the GHY University. This is what we're going to cover off, talking about what exactly is the cloud, why is the cloud even important, why your firm should even be more aware of it, what specifically can the cloud technology do for you and your firm, and why business leaders should be better informed about it. We've got Q&A scheduled for the end of it. If you do have any other questions along the way, please feel free, again, to use the questions box, or you can use the raise hand feature to let us know that you'd like to interact. So most presentations start with a definition, helping us all get to the same grounding. But as our friends Wikipedia have clearly put onto this note, the subject may be too technical for most readers. So we're not going to focus on that definition. Let's talk about, why is it even called a cloud? Well, the reality is it's actually a very simple answer. And the simple answer is that back in the 1990s, whenever telecommunications companies began to refer to this environment, not so much the internet specifically, they used to use a cloud symbol. And ultimately, the name just stuck, the cloud. So when we talk about it, that's really all it is it's just a differentiation of a visual representation of what we refer to this technology. Now, hang on. What you need to understand, though, is the internet itself is not the cloud. The internet is a communications channel that's used to get to the cloud, but the cloud itself is not exactly what we are talking about here. So some of the things that we really want to understand as we go through this is to ensure that that we don't start confusing the internet and internet connectivity with the business use of this thing called the cloud. So let's understand that a tad more. Our friends at IBM had created this diagram, and I'll make the reference here, but I'll try and give you an analogy. I had seen somebody in the last 6 months made the analogy of making a pizza. You want to eat pizza for dinner. And so what we have is the traditional on-premise, as we have on the very left-hand side, is you buy everything. So you want to have pizza for dinner, you're going to go get the ingredients for making the dough, you're going to buy the sauce, the toppings, the cheese, you're going to grate the cheese and do absolutely everything yourself. That's what that is. And then they have this middle ground where it's really the infrastructure where, you don't buy the oven. You don't pay for the electricity. Somebody else has that. You still bring your pizza toppings and you still bring your ingredients and everything else. But at the end of the day, all you simply want to do is just make the pizza you want, but somebody else will take care of it. And then we have the third category to the right, what they call in the cloud platform as a service. And while this is traditionally made for software developers, when we look at it from a technology perspective, where you bring your data and programs, if you think of it as that pizza, they basically provide everything else. They even have the crust there and the sauce. You just bring your toppings that you want to put on it. And then you have software as a service, which is very popular and well known by many other names. Well, you own none of it. So it is the restaurant. You go to the restaurant, you order a pizza, you consume a pizza. So in understanding that, we really have what constitutes, a service is really becoming cloudy. For most business use, the focus is on the far right-hand box, software as a service, because this is where it's not about the technology or providing the infrastructure of technology. It's just about using it. Just as you don't think about picking up the telephone and expecting there to be dial tone, this is not having you worry about what makes that computer run. You just want to know, you go to it, you turn on, the software's there, you use it, you move on. So that's really what we see in today's world. If we look at it from a little bit different view, what we see here is kind of those phrases again, the application and platform and infrastructure kind of layering in. And you see all the ways that we might use that information, whether it be on a mobile device such as a phone or a tablet, a laptop, a desktop, or servers within your environment communicating. That's where it is. Really, from a business point of view, what you want to get an understanding is that it's about an alternate way to get access to software. So from a business perspective, it's not about the servers or the infrastructure and so forth. There's always questions about, security, compliance. If you're in an industry that's a regulated environment, those things kind of fit. So common uses of the infrastructure as you look at it is from an infrastructure-based perspective, the audience is typically IT. Rather than them go buy stuff, they just want to rent equipment to use in order to fulfill your needs. They might use infrastructure as a service. The platform as a service and all of those other pieces that come in, that's typically your software development or software companies that want to create some kind of software. They would buy platform as a service. And the application level, well, that's typically the business user. That is a finished product that you would do, whether it be some kind of calendaring software, some kind of communication software, monitoring software, finance software, website. If you have your website hosted outside your company, you're using the cloud in order to do that. So let's dive. So why is the cloud even important? Well, it simply comes down to the good old financial model of CapEx versus OpEx. And it's really about how you use your money and what are the tax implications to your business. CapEx, of course, has the write-down rules that typically mandate that. And of course, that is different in every jurisdiction, where the OpEx allows you the more immediate write-off because you are just consuming the use of something there. And so really, when you look at this from an analysis standpoint, it's always about how do you solve your own business problem, but it's also taking a look at those three baskets of cost, speed, and flexibility to figure out what's the best way for you to do it. Now, this whole concept of the cloud really isn't new. In fact, the technology we use today was actually established in the 1960s and 70s. The internet normalized the visual aspect of being connected. So what we find there is that we went from having this occasional dial in and connect world to an always on. And really, it's been just really the advent of high speed data communications that have enabled this always on remote connection kind of mentality. And that really has changed our expectations of how we use the technology, which is why the internet as a communication medium is so darn popular. Really, the cloud is what's the new emerging, which is how we use the internet much more productively. We have other technologies such as things called virtualization and so forth, which has allowed companies offering these services to do it in a much more effective way, if you will, sharing. Many people have been able to share one platform of technology is really what it has allowed. So when we look at it, you ask some of what are the common reasons in support of the cloud? So what we've got here is, as you take a look, all of these information technology our issues are valid, but are they important? And more importantly, when you read this, where are the business reasons that comes from this? So you take a look at it, it's important to think of these things, but you really do have to think about what's going on from this perspective. Sorry, I'm just getting an echo here, so I'm just trying to make sure we cancel that. So if we consider those issues as we move forward, then the question comes up of why your firm should even be more aware of it. Well, you have things like here where you run the aspects of your business where the cloud solution is the right software solution. Meaning that at the end of the day, you end up having to look at what's the business problem you're trying to solve. So when you take a look and understand that the business problem you're trying to solve is addressed by this software, i.e. the software is the right solution, and it just happens to live out on that cloud, then therefore the alternate delivery vehicle of the cloud is simply all that it becomes. It's just a different way to get software that solves your problem. Sometimes you might look at it as you're trying to do something quickly. I know in our organization many years ago, we began the exercise of looking at how do we start to develop much more professional sales and marketing development. And with that, we needed some software to help manage that process. And going to the cloud was a very fast, low-risk way in order to figure out, did we really need this and would it solve the problem? And continues to be the way that we do business today with that particular software. You might also want to experiment. Maybe somebody's got an idea. It might be the next brilliant idea that will create a massive success for your organization, but to try and get IT's time to put it on the agenda, for them to set things up, sometimes is very difficult. So maybe you just need somewhere you can experiment, somewhere you can play. So definitely the cloud creates that opportunity as well. The other time, of course, is that we all face is with the changing economics, is that you don't always have the dollars available whenever you want them. So the traditional expenditure or investment methodologies that are used that typically dictate a lot of internal information technology investments or a lot of departmental spend really relate to can we get that done and just pay for the little bit we're going to use, because nobody starts something and goes to 100%. So what we end up having is taking a look at how we go through this exercise and figure out, can we get in, start really slow, which means you're probably paying very little, and you can move forward. Or the other piece is perhaps there's actually some tax advantages to this. So if we take a look here, back to that same model, what you see is that on the left-hand side, that is your CapEx, your capital expenditure model, where you're buying everything. The infrastructure is you're not buying the hardware, but you're still buying all the software. The platform is where you're bringing your data, your information, and you're bringing your programs, but everything else is already there. And again, the software as a service, we own nothing. So it's an OpEx or an operational expense, therefore tends to be a much more direct write-off for most organizations. Okay, so that's fine. So the question really is, so what? Like, why should we even worry about that? Well, when we think about it, these are some pretty common things that are actually done online today. So customer relationship, Salesforce. Many people know about Salesforce.com. It's probably the most dominant and successful company in the cloud today, providing customer relationship management, typically perceived as either a customer service tool or perceived as a sales and marketing tool for organizations. But there's many others, such as Basecamp, that we can get into. Oh, sorry, Basecamp is in another category, but so we have that. Luxor CRM, which is a product that GHY uses, is a Canadian company. So if the jurisdiction of where the cloud exists for you is an issue, then you may want to look at it. So that's just two of many examples. And they go everywhere from some very simplistic solutions to very advanced solutions that are out there in the marketplace. When we talk about marketing and brand management, we have people like Moz. And really, this is an amazing tool that helps you measure how do people find your online presence, and how do people know how well you're performing, say, compared to your competitors or compared to your industry space. That's what the Moz does from an online marketing perspective. The Marketing Cloud from Salesforce plus ExactTarget you see there, that was actually an acquisition by Salesforce of the Canadian company Radian6. And Radian6 was the preeminent leader in brand management online. And now they're a Salesforce company, so they have been brought into that entire mix. The networking and sales funnel building, LinkedIn on the left-hand side, right from a free account right through to paid accounts. If you feel that one of those categories and some of the features they offer are appropriate, definitely allows you to create relationships, get to know folks so that when you do meet face-to-face, you can actually enhance that understanding. And that ultimately, if you're doing it correctly, can build and improve your sales funnel. Accounting and billing. There's not a lot of options out there that I'm aware of that fill that void, but certainly something like FreshBooks is a well-known name that really fills that entire service portfolio. So again, that's typically geared towards the small enterprise. Doesn't have to be small in terms of people, typically small in terms of financials, in terms of what it provides or it's allowed you to do. And as you can see, it's available in all the different formats, so you don't need to worry about the technology of how it happens. You can just go ahead and use it, which is really all you ever want to do when you look at trying to solve a problem. Logistics and trade, right into our own space. Not only do we have folks like GT Nexus, who have an entire line of global supply chain tools for importers and exporters to manage and understand their risk, so that if you're going to have resources within your organization, as you may recall from some of our white papers we've presented previously, we talk about the focus on compliance and risk management internally. And so tools like that help you. Or things like from our own offerings with our e-manifest, where it helps you. But certainly we're not the only ones. Companies that some of you may be using or familiar with, Descartes, who GHY is a client of Descartes, they provide solutions for importers and exporters in this entire logistics and trade, and they are cloud-based. Smart Border, GHY also works with the Smart Border folks. We do all of our US custom brokerage and transaction through that for our clients that use our smart border shipper, get to experience the power of that tool on a daily basis. You might be a client of TMS, Cloud Logistics, GT Nexus, as we have here, Shipwire, Border Connect, Border Connector, who GHY partner with to do our e-manifest offerings, Supply Vision, Scientific Logistics, IBM, or T-Systems, which you would know as Texas Instruments. So all of these companies offer solutions that fit the logistics and trade industry depending upon what your need is. A couple of really good Google searches really help you start to find who some of these providers are and how they kind of fill that space. But I mean, that's not it. It goes much further. I made reference to things like project management. We all have projects to deal with. They're not all necessarily technology. You could be in construction and perhaps you have needs there. So products like Basecamp or Todoodle-Do, and that is Todoodle-Do, all one word, are various kinds of project management or to-do list management kind of systems. If you're a small enterprise, you may look to actually move your phone system into the cloud. So people like Ring Central or eVoice or Thinking Phone Networks or 8x8 are all names of companies who provide your telephone service in the cloud. You might even have your fax service in the cloud as well. Typically with either MyFax or eFax are two leading companies that provide that kind of service. Of course, we're all familiar with email in the cloud. Whether you do it through Google and their Gmail product, or Microsoft as their Outlook product, or perhaps you've moved beyond that and you're using their Office 365, which is a complete cloud-based product that includes their Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint tools in the cloud as well. Symantec also offers email services as well. We talked about already the Microsoft 365, but Google, not to be outdone, has offerings in that space as well with their Google Docs offering as well. You can have video conferencing in the cloud. Many government services are trying to create cloud-based services, and you can even find virtual assistants online in the cloud today as well. So as you can see, there's not a shortage of things that take us through that exercise, but it really does raise the question, why should you care? Maybe some of these ideas resonate with you. Perhaps, the whole concept of not having that layer of complexity of technology interests you. But really, why should you? And I think there was a couple of interesting stats here that I had pulled out that are dated in 2013 that really help us kind of understand. So according to the survey that they had done of 1,100 IT decision makers, 72% of them felt they're moving more services to the cloud in the next 3 years. And I can certainly tell you, being a professional in that space, I've spent this entire year hearing from the vendor community who are telling us how all of our world is going to live in the cloud in the next few years. So it may not be that we have a choice with some of this stuff, is that people may be actually driving us because it's much easier for them to deliver software to us in order for us to do our business by using the cloud. One of the other stats pulled out there that 70% of IT directors, VPs, and C-level executives believe in the value of the cloud, but just 53% of managers feel the same. And that's really interesting if you consider that from a business point of view, the management level of the organization doesn't see it or get it or perceive it, but yet from a leadership perspective, there is a clear differential and perhaps a understanding that there's value out there. So perhaps it's maybe the more day-to-day orientation of managers rather than the strategic. But it simply says that there's an interesting differential. So depending upon the audience you're trying to speak to within your role in the organization, you have to understand that there is a different level of understanding that's out there. Now, the things that we hear from business leaders is that they're worried about risk mitigation, security policies, compliance, potential integration into other systems, the technical risks, as well as disillusionment. Anybody that's familiar with our friends Gartner, this is the Gartner. This was as of August in 2012. They have this really interesting chart. It's called a hype cycle. But you'll notice that I've circled in red here that as we look at the bottom, we're coming into the trough of disillusionment. Now this is 2012. I've seen the 2013, and has continued to come down. And really, what that is that we go through this overhype. You read about it in the press. Every airline magazine's talking about it. Everybody's going, "You're not doing the cloud. Why aren't you doing the cloud? Everybody should be doing the cloud." And then we actually get the realization that maybe it's not everything it's cracked up to be. Maybe it doesn't exactly make all the sense. It's not all the what do they call it? Unicorns and fairy dust that we thought it was going to be going through. And so we actually get into this realization. But what I want to point out is notice what happens to the right of this as we hit the slope of enlightenment, the understanding of where the real value lies in this technology and helping us do business better, up to the plateau of productivity. So when we talk about Salesforce being a very mature, Salesforce as a product has actually, it's out there, and you can actually see still at the top end of the slope of enlightenment, Salesforce Automation SaaS. That's where the Salesforce company fits. It is very much getting there. Dedicated email, doing Gmail in the cloud. That's right. That's on the far right-hand side of that chart. So everything is kind of coming through the cycle, and we're trying to understand it. But what we got to understand coming into this trough is the business drivers that said we should go here, well, they're not being met. Your compliance concerns aren't being addressed. And IT, trust me, it's our fallback position. We can't do everything because of security. And I can tell you, though, it's not always warranted. It is absolutely critical and important, but it's not always the reason you shouldn't do something. It just means they haven't figured out how to address the particular concern to move forward. So, as we've gone through the presentation, we've absolutely flown through to this point. So I apologize we didn't stop halfway. But, let's kind of wrap it up, and then we'll open it up for your questions. But, the question, is the cloud a menacing storm? Is it a silver lining? Unfortunately, it depends. It depends on who you are. Are you IT? Are you business focused? If you're business focused, are there solutions out there to solve problems that you're waiting for IT to solve for you? If you're IT, can you not get budget? Are you restricted from moving projects forward because you need some critical technology to do it? Is that technology or service available outside the organization where you can rent it or borrow it or just pay for the use of it? So it really depends upon who you are in the organization. It also depends upon how disruptive the solutions are to your business. Do they help you become a market leader? Do they help you catch up? Where do you want to be on that curve? I think certainly from our experience, as we talk to folks, not everybody understands what they want to do online, but everybody certainly understands they want to do things online. And not necessarily to self-service. In other words, have you do the work instead of us, but more so to allow you opportunities. Can you add value, or can you interject yourself into the value process that is being executed? So definitely, that has to figure out where you are as a business and how you, quote, fall into that. It also depends upon what regulatory and compliance regimes you have to report to. Certainly, if you're in the finance sector, you've got federal laws that are guiding what you do. There's also various auditors and associations that kind of control what things are allowed. You may be in an industry where there's a belief of Canadian intellectual capital, and therefore you can't use anybody that has their cloud service that actually is operating out of the United States, because it may create a risk for your business. The Patriot Act is certainly the most referenced U.S. law that talks about anything that's in the U.S. domain. The U.S. government, after the unfortunate events of 9/11, created the Patriot Act, which really gives them access to any information on U.S. soil without your permission. So as a Canadian organization, you might not want that. Question is, can you control it in the cloud? Because if you notice, location's not one of the things we've talked about, because typically you can't control location. The other one is, it depends upon your organization's comfort level and the tolerance with solutions not in your control. You can't say, why is this so slow? It's not working. Basically, your internet connection gets you out and to them. Everything else, when you're out in the cloud, is up to the other parties. Your IT department today can own all of that if it's inside the four walls of your business. You move it outside, are you okay with that? Are you okay having another finger they can point to, but you may not have an influence? I can share with you that we had a situation that we worked through as we were using some software in the cloud, and it ended up being the large telecom in the United States, Sprint. Now, we're not a direct client to Sprint, but it was Sprint that I needed to talk to in order to convince them to do something to improve the experience that I was getting through the cloud. Imagine having to interject yourself into business processes where you're not even a client of the people that are involved, between you and where that cloud service actually offers. So it unfortunately really does depend upon where does it fit for you in terms of your priorities going forward. If this was a topic that you found some interest in, you wanted to talk about a little further, as you know, at GHY, we're always available for you. So here are many different ways you can reach out to me through many different cloud services, including traditional landline and email, that you can feel free to do it. But would love to pause at this point and see if anybody has any questions. You can use the put your hand up option, or certainly you can type in the chat or the question and answer box if you had any specific questions. We'll give that a minute or two. But what I will, as you're thinking about that, I will just share with you a couple of brief things. So after today's session closes, we have been recording this, so we will send you out a thank you email. In that email, we'll have reference to how you can get a copy of the slide deck if that's something that you're interested in. We'll also have a link to the recording of this in case somebody else that you want to show it to, or you want to go back and re-listen to it at a later time. We're very, very appreciative of you taking the time to join us here. We do have in our thank you email a request for a short 5-minute or less survey, really helping us look at what we can do going forward to ensure that this GHYU series that we've been creating is always aligned to helping you folks. Your feedback really shaped this year's agenda, as we had a couple of sessions on tariff classification and NAFTA that was definitely asked about. So we definitely want to continue to make it your program where we provide a valuable resource for you. One of the ways that we can find that is we don't have the 2015 calendar published yet. So the 2015 calendar will show up on our brand new website. So next week, I believe it's December 8th or 9th, we are launching a brand new website. So if you go to www.ghy.com, you're going to see our current website, but you should see a new banner at the top of the website. And with that banner, we'll give you a link to go to our brand new website that we're going to have up in this kind of temporary mode for about a month or so. We'll take a look at it and figure out when it makes sense to switch it over permanently. But gives you an opportunity. In there, we have a brand new events calendar. So as we come up with our courses for 2015, we'll have a brand new events calendar that you can go ahead and reach out and take a look at that. And we'll be updating that on a regular basis. So take a look for that in 2015. I can tell you, if you want to plan it in your calendar, we will be doing 4 events again next year, 1 each quarter. And typically it happens in the 3rd month of the quarter, like this one here in the first Wednesday of that month. So with that, I don't see any other questions at this time. I do thank you all very, very much for taking the time. My apologies for the few technical glitches we had. I'd like to close by just wishing everybody a very Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. Thank you for your business, and thank you for attending.